This video is brought to you by these YouTube members. Thank you guys so much for your continued support. Hello everyone and welcome to the top 10 swimsuit characters on Bleach Brave Souls. We've had a great many of them over the years, unfortunately just 2 this year, but it's still enough to make a decent top 10 list. So with that said, let's begin. Now starting off the list, we have the swimsuit version of Odahime, more specifically the tech version. This Odahime has a really high SP as well as frenzy and a strong attack recharge link. She's also got decent range on her strong attacks with a full screen strong attack 3, a lunge move strong attack 1, and a generic AoE attack for strong attack 2. She doesn't really have havoc, but the range is fine. Strong attack wise, she is kind of generic. Her special on the other hand is anything but. Not only does it hit hard thanks to her high SP and its full screen, but it also leaves behind the enemies with weakened defense, meaning it actually hits way harder and lets you and your allies deal more damage to any enemy that might survive it. In addition to that, it also heals the entire party for 60% of their total health and has a 5% chance per hit to instantly take out the enemy. It may not inflict a status ailment, but it's one of the best and most versatile specials in the game. To top it off, this Odahime is also completely immune to being slowed, which rarely comes up, but it is useful when it does. The reason I did put her at number 10 though is because of her killer. It's a human killer and that definitely doesn't show up often. It's only really useful in a handful of situations. Still, the character is pretty good. I just hope they eventually make human killers more relevant. Coming in at number 9 is the oldest character you're gonna see on this list, the swimsuit version of Noelle. Now this version of Noelle recently got resurrected, and she was already usable before that, so now she's even better. She's got a really high SP as well as frenzy. She's also got a boosted strong attack recharge link of 14%, and thanks to her resurrection, Noelle also has a strong attack damage link of 16%, making her one of the best links in the entire game. This version of Noelle is one of the few characters with havoc at 30%, which sounds great, but is only kinda meh, since her strong attacks would have pretty poor range without it. While she may not have a full screen strong attack, her strong attack 3 does encompass a really wide area. She's got a lunge move for her strong attack 1, and her strong attack 2 is a vortex move that may inflict burn. In addition to that, it also provides a few iframes for Noelle, meaning she can't be hit during her strong attack 2's animation. Now supposedly they had fixed this, but I've tried it since and it still works, so I don't know if the window is just shorter or what. Either way, this Noelle is incredibly fun, incredibly useful as both a character and a link, and honestly it's amazing that a character so old is still relevant now.
水の戦いで私に勝てるとでも思ったか。そこで永遠に夏を満喫していろ。
Okay, so I'm not gonna lie, I'm kind of taking a risk of making this video now because there's a good chance that this Hollybell, the second version of Soifon, and the first version of Odahime might get resurrected this year. And depending on how that would go, this list may become irrelevant pretty quickly. But I'm gonna make it again next year, so it's not that big of a deal. This version of Hollybell is really good. She's got a really high SP as well as frenzy and a strong attack recharge link. This Hollybell also has some pretty good strong attacks, with a strong attack 1 being a beam shot, a strong attack 2 being a lunge move, and a strong attack 3 being a charge move that doubles in strength when fully charged. Now none of these attacks are full screen, but they do still have pretty good range. I do think she can benefit from havoc if she gets resurrected, but even without it, it would still be pretty solid. After all, her lunge move being a strong attack 2 means it has about as much range for a character who has havoc and a lunge move for their strong attack 1. And her strong attack 1 is a beam shot, which already have great range. Really the one that needs it the most is her strong attack 3, but when fully charged, the amount of damage dealt is absolutely worth the small loss of range. This Hollybell is also completely immune to being frozen, and her special, in addition to dealing damage, also leaves behind the enemies with weakened attack. I was a really big fan of the water gun theme for this banner when it first came out, and I really hope that we haven't seen the last of that. It's been several years, so I think it's time to bring it back.
眼中の野郎には任せておけねえ。柴家秘伝の一撃だ。とくと見やがれ。
Now I'm a really big fan of Kukaku. I still hope we get a 5-star canon version of this character who's really good, since the metal exchange one exists, but isn't. But this was the first time we got a Kukaku who was actually good. She has a really high SP as well as a frenzy and a strong attack damage link. She's also got a trident, and all of her attacks can inflict debilitating paralysis. This is particularly likely for her strong attack 2, since it's a static vortex move. It hits 20 times and comes back after 16 seconds like a regular strong attack 2. This is particularly useful for crowd control as well as for taking out bosses. Kukaku also has a lunge move strong attack 1 and a near full screen strong attack 3. Why they didn't make it full screen is beyond me, since there's really no reason, but maybe they'll give her havoc when they resurrect her in 2 or 3 years. Finally, like every other character that came out in this banner, she's also completely immune to being slowed. Honestly, there's not much more to say about this character. I wouldn't necessarily call her top tier, but she's definitely good. The game needs more Kukaku.
待っててください、ハリベル様。そらやった。いっちゃあぐれ。
Next up, we have the swimsuit version of Apache. Now, if you watch these videos, you know I'm not a very big fan of uncommon killers, such as an Espada killer, which is what she has. Though the game is constantly evolving, and killers such as these are becoming either more and more useful, or game modes are being introduced where killers don't matter as much. Either way, I'm glad that the lines for killers are becoming blurred, because killer aside, this character is really good. She's got a really high SP as well as a plus 40 Berserker and Frenzy, meaning her strong attacks hit really hard. On top of that, she's got Havoc at 20, so in addition to her strong attacks hitting really hard, they also encompass a really wide area. Her strong attack 1 is a beam shot with ridiculous range, her strong attack 2 is a near full screen attack, and her strong attack 3 is beyond full screen. And while her attack stat may not be that high, her normal attack does deal a decent amount of damage thanks to her having Bruiser at 40%. This character also has a very impressive special. Since she has a high SP, it deals a lot of damage, but she's also got a plus 60 devastation. On top of that, it also inflicts weakened defense, and heals the entire party for 60% of their health. To top everything off, she's also completely immune from being weakened. I'm still deducting points because of that killer, but I can't deny she's a very impressive character.
開放的になったわしの力はこんなものではないぞ。どうじゃ。
Next up, we have the power swimsuit version of Yoruichi, a character with a really high SP as well as Frenzy, as well as a strong attack recharge link. Now Yoruichi came out at the same time as Odahime and Kukaku, meaning she's also immune to being slowed. Now back then, Kukaku was the best of the three, thanks to a relevant killer and Yoruichi having a no affiliation killer. But since 2019, the world is a very different place. And as you all know, the biggest difference in this world from 2019 to 2021 is of course the fact that in BBS, no affiliation enemies are now more common, making this Yoruichi easily the best of the three. She can inflict debilitating weakening on all of her attacks, and she's very likely to do so too. Her strong attack 1 is a pushback move that hits multiple times, and her strong attack 2 is a hybrid vortex move that gathers enemies in one spot before pushing them back. Both attacks hit an incredibly large number of times and are very likely to inflict debilitating weakening. They are also very good for crowd control, as well as for taking out bosses, which she definitely excels in. She has the perfect kit for it, and since she's a Yoruichi, she can flash that multiple times, making it super easy to avoid enemy specials. Now I won't lie, I went back and forth a lot with the placement of her and Apache, since Apache can definitely deal more damage, and in certain situations she is the better character. She's certainly the faster character, that's for sure. But Yoruichi is the most versatile, and her ability to weaken not only helps her, but any other ally in an event, which is why I ended up placing her above Apache despite Apache being stronger. I'm sure I'm gonna hear about her in the comments, but a lot of those people who are gonna complain about it usually skip the dialogue part of the video and just skip to see who's in what position, so they're never gonna hear this anyway.
波と戯れるのもいいものだな。一緒に飲むか？
Next up is a character that I've been using a lot lately, the swimsuit version of Hollybell. That sentence is something I don't get to say often, since if you know me, you know Hollybell likes to avoid me like the plague. Usually I have to wait a couple years before getting a Hollybell that came out, but this time I only have to wait about 9 months. It was well worth it though. This Hollybell is really good. She's got a really high attack as well as a plus 40 bruiser and a 25% normal attack damage link. On top of that, she's also got flurry and poise, meaning that by herself she increases her own attack damage by 65% before flurry, effectively making her one of the hardest normal attacking characters in the entire game. And while her SP may not be that high, her strong attacks do have decent range, and she does have Berserker at 50%, making them a valid option for damage. In fact, I'm going to be doing a wrong build on this character for that reason, allowing me to self-promote in my own video and make it sound like a feature of this character. Anyway, back to the character. She is currently one of the best characters to auto with because she hits so hard, and thanks to that poise, the only way to really slow her down is to either paralyze her or freeze her, since she's completely immune to being weakened. That weaken resistance and poise also come in handy in PvP, where she can also do pretty well in. I mean, she's no Tsukishima or Jugram, but she can hold her own. Overall, she's just a great character.
マユリ様にご満足いただけるでしょうか。もう少しだけいいですよね。
Okay, so the number 3 spot and the number 2 spot were really difficult. Mostly because Nemo is an insanely good character with an insanely good kit. She's got a really high SP, Berserker at 20, Frenzy, Havoc at 20, and can inflict debilitating paralysis on all of her attacks. She can spam them thanks to her strong attack recharge link, and because of that Havoc, they have really good range. Her strong attack 1 is a lunge move, her strong attack 2 is near full screen, blasting everything in front of her, and her strong attack 3 is beyond full screen. Nemo also has an Arankar killer, which is the second best killer you can have, and she's completely immune to being weakened, which I am now realizing that it's something that all of last year's characters had. Now as far as kits go, there's very few things that can beat this. She may have come out a year ago, but this Nemo is on par if not better than a lot of the characters coming out now.
行くぞ。このビッグウェーブを乗り。綺麗だな。
Next up is one of the 2 new swimsuit characters, the swimsuit version of Rukia. Now Rukia has a really high SP, as well as Frenzy, Berserker at 20, Havoc at 20, and she can inflict debilitating paralysis on all of her attacks. If this sounds familiar, it's because it's the exact same thing that Nemo has. That said, there are some differences. While they both have the exact same strong attack 1 and the exact same strong attack 3, both being lunge moves and full screens that are beyond full screen, their strong attack 2s are very different. Nemo's is a forward blast with great range, while Rukia's, while still having decent range, does have less range. It's a hybrid vortex move that centers on her, and while not as fast, does hit a higher number of times. Personally, I do prefer Nemo's, but I can definitely see where Rukia's would be more useful, especially when trying to inflict paralysis. Additionally, this version of Rukia also has guard break, so she doesn't have to worry about that, and all of her attacks will inflict the maximum amount of damage. This version of Rukia also has a strong attack recharge link, though hers is boosted to 14%, and she's got a Soul Reaper killer. On top of that, she's immune to being both burnt and poisoned, the 2 most common floor hazards. Honestly, I'm surprised it took this long to get a 5-star version of Swimsuit Rukia, since we went through 2 Yoruichis, Hollybells, Soifons, Odahimes, and Nemus before getting the first Rukia, who's like the main female character in Bleach.
さあ本気出すわよ。いっけー。
水を味方につけた隠密起動の恐ろしさ味わうといい。スプラッシュ B。
よし頑張るよ。えへーい。織姫必殺ウォーターアタック。仰せのままに。いかがでしょう。よかったですね。大したことがなくて。
Now finally at number 1, we have the speed version of Swimsuit Retsu. Now while Retsu and Rukia came out at the same time, I would say that there's no question that Retsu got the better deal. She has a really high SP as well as Berserker at 20%, Frenzy, and a strong attack recharge link. On top of that, she's also got Havoc, increasing the range of all of her strong attacks, and they can all inflict debilitating weakening, which is still the best status ailment, and she's very likely to inflict it with a strong attack 1. It's a pushback strong attack 1 that hits a large number of times, greatly increasing the chance of inflicting weakening and knocking enemies back, which is perfect for crowd control for a ranged character or one up against bosses. Her strong attack 2 is a beam shot move with ridiculous range, and her strong attack 3, while not necessarily being a full screen, does encompass the range of a beyond full screen move, as it decimates anything in front of her and beyond. All of this while having the ability Guard Break, which also comes in handy for her normal attack, since you never have to worry about enemies guarding. Speaking of which, it is a ranged attack that hits twice with each hit, increasing the likelihood of inflicting weakening. Then we have her special, that not only deals a large amount of damage, but also heals the entire party for 60% of their total health, inflicts weakening, and also weaken defense, which is just insane. It's the most versatile special on this list, and easily the best one, assuming you don't instant kill with Odahime. And even then, in some situations, it's better than that. This Retsu is also completely immune to being paralyzed, is able to read Soul Reaper dodges, and she's a potion drop character. So there's all the benefits of that. While we did get 2 amazing swimsuit characters this year, I really hope they don't continue the trend of 2 characters per banner. I know that may be the case for Anniversary, and that's understandable, and I even get it when they do it for double team characters, but it really doesn't make sense for everything else. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, hit like and subscribe to the channel, and stay tuned for some more top 10 lists.